Here at Formula Botanica, we teach our students the skills of botanical formulation using organic, natural ingredients. And the skills of formulation themselves don't fundamentally change from year to year. As I've covered here before on the podcast, the fundamental principles of formulation have in fact stood the test of time for thousands of years. Think of techniques such as emulsification, solubilization, gelling, warm blending, whipping, distillation, enfleurage, preservation. These are all techniques that are still used today by chemists, by chefs, and yes, by home formulators. But as the industry evolves and as more research and development is undertaken, new ingredients emerge and old ingredients are rediscovered. And this is what makes formulation so incredibly exciting. There are tens of thousands of cosmetic ingredients available to us as formulators. And each year, the science and the research goes further into what those ingredients can do and also how they're created. That's why my team and I attend industry trade shows such as in Cosmetics Global, where we get to meet with hundreds of suppliers from around the world and spot the latest trends. Then we use those trends and we incorporate that information into our continuing professional development membership site, the Lab at Formula Botanica. And 2023 is no different. This year, our education manager, Anna Green, and our cosmetic scientist, Beatriz Amaral, attended in Cosmetics Global in Barcelona. And today they're here on the podcast to tell us all about the hottest ingredients, the newest botanicals, and the industry trends they spotted that will inspire us all. Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations, the podcast that challenges you to think about how you buy, use, make, or sell your green beauty formulations. In my weekly episodes, I explore the sustainability of the beauty industry, and I encourage you to join me in changing the beauty industry for the better. I'm your host, Lorraine Dallmeier. I'm a chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. We have thousands and thousands of students in over 180 countries around the world who study with us to become organic beauty formulators and entrepreneurs. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you want to be the first person to know what's happening in green beauty, and I know you do, then make sure you subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. So in today's episode, I'm joined by Anna Green, Formula Botanica's education manager, and Beatriz Amaral, Formula Botanica's cosmetic scientist. Our education team in the school has 10 people in it, and Anna and Beatriz guide the way we teach, the educational content we create, and the formulations we design for our students. Anna is an industry professional with over a decade of experience in green beauty and has been on this podcast with me many times. And Beatriz is a skilled cosmetic scientist with multiple qualifications in pharmaceutical sciences and biochemistry, as well as research experience in studying the skin absorption of cosmetic ingredients. Hi, Anna and Beatriz. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lorraine. Thank you for having us on the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to talk to you too today. It's lovely always when we can bring members of the Formula Botanica team on the podcast, because that way we can talk a bit more about what we do in the school as well. Now, you two are here because you recently attended a huge trade show in Barcelona for Formula Botanica, which was all about cosmetic ingredients. So can you tell us a little bit about what it was and why it's held each year? Anna, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, so In Cosmetics is a huge trade show of raw ingredient suppliers, but you also have other sort of industry relevant stands there. So you have certification bodies, you might have equipment, packaging, that kind of thing. But the key part of the show is ingredients, raw cosmetic ingredients, and it brings lots and lots of people together. And, you know, people who are buyers, who are formulators can go and they can choose ingredients at the stand. They can network, they can talk to people. It is a very exciting event to attend as somebody who is interested in formulation. It's incredible to see the variety that exists within our industry.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. And for those people who are listening and have never attended something like this, can you just give us a flavor of how big it is?
Yeah, the show is huge. So it's across several different halls, and these are big, big halls. So we're not talking small spaces. We're talking really, really, really big spaces. Beatriz and I attended for several days, and we spent from morning through till the end of day walking around, and you speak to so many different people, hundreds and hundreds of people, because there is just so much to see there. So that is one of the amazing things about it. It can be a little bit overwhelming if it's your first time, but it is incredibly exciting. And like I said, it really showcases the variety that we have within the industry, which I think is always, I always come away sort of really excited about what we do.
I can absolutely imagine. I mean, I've attended some of them in the past as well. I think this year they had a record-breaking number of people there. I think it was like 13,000. So I suppose that puts it into perspective. Beatriz, I think this was your first one ever, wasn't it, in cosmetics? Or am I wrong with that? What was it like attending?
Yes, it was. I felt like a child in an amusement park because there was so much to see and it was all new to me somehow. So it was very different to be there in person. And I liked it very much to speak with people and learn about new ingredients, innovations, because I guess usually they release new ingredients in this event. So it was nice to see them presenting what they are developing now. It was amazing.
It sounds like a fantastic experience. I'm sorry I missed out this year. Well, I'd love to hear, because I know a lot of the people listening to this podcast are really interested in green beauty, buying it, making it. I know a lot of formulators are listening to us as we speak. So what sort of big trends did you both spot this year? Anna, I'll start with you.
One big trend is, looking at a variety of different active ingredients, and a trend that we're particularly interested in here at Formula Botanica is retinol alternatives. So there was a big trend. It was one of the key themes of the show that there were many different sort of either botanically derived or through sort of different processes, alternatives to some of your classic ingredients, classic active ingredients that the industry has relied on for so long, like retinols. So we saw all sorts of different ingredients that are claimed to be retinol alternatives, derived from all sorts of things, from seaweed to there's a plant called Biden's pilosa that is very popular, and they were absolutely everywhere. And this sort of big trend for active ingredients that are plant-based was a really key theme this year that I felt coming through very strongly.
Amazing. What did you see, Beatriz?
I noticed that many ingredients are derived from algae, seaweed, or microalgae, many marine-derived ingredients like carrageenan, alginate, various gums. Also new emulsifiers based on seaweed, which was very interesting to see. An interesting trend I saw was active spheres made with alginate, which is derived from algae. And there were spheres everywhere. And I was like, oh my, we didn't knew this was a trend last year when we launched the marine-derived ingredients in the lab. So it was exciting to see that the industry is now showing this trend too. So they had all types, all colors. There were some companies that made spheres on demand. So it was amazing to see this. And also something I realized that many brands are now relying on upcycled ingredients, and this is getting attention. And I think this is very important for us too.
Yes, as Beatriz said, there was spheres everywhere, every single color, every single size, every single sort of shape that you could imagine. They were absolutely incredible. And we were really pleased to see, because we featured some of this content in our membership site, which is called The Lab at Formula Botanica. And it was very, very exciting to see so many different types of spheres. It really was everywhere at the show.
That must have been quite validating to go, we're ahead of the curve yet again.
Yes, we always are.
Yes.
I love that. So what were your personal favorite ingredients that you saw? Because I know you walk around the show, there's literally ingredients everywhere. There have been banners everywhere, different stands with different ingredients, and you feel a little bit overwhelmed. But now you've had some time to digest. What would you say were the big hitters for you?
Well, for me, of course, the retinol alternatives, there were all types of retinol alternatives based on seaweed, based on other plants, with all kinds of mechanisms of action, which was very interesting to see how each ingredient dealt with trying to be similar to retinol, but with different strategies. And also an ingredient that really caught my attention, and is a very simple ingredient, was tamarind gum, because it's a plant-based gum which jellifies when in contact with glycerin. So you can make shower jellies, peel-off masks, all kinds of formulations with this gum, and it's so interesting, and I wish I could try it.
Sounds amazing. I love the sound of that. And obviously, we'll be using some of these ingredients, I have no doubt, in some of the materials that we'll be creating in the future, particularly for our membership site. What about you, Anna? What were the sort of main takeaways from you in terms of ingredients? Now you've had some time to digest.
I really enjoyed sort of the sustainability area. And there was, as Beatriz has already mentioned, a big focus on upcycled ingredients. And there was one in particular that caught my eye that is a soothing and calming ingredient that is derived from mandarins. And they've cleverly called it calmandrin, which was very good as a name. So yeah, it's just the whole ingredient story around it, about how it's derived from upcycled ingredients, what it did for the skin. That whole presentation sort of stood out to me as something that was very thoughtfully put together. But also, I was very, very pleased to see, again, we talked about retinol earlier, but other classic cosmetic ingredients now available as either natural or organic certified. So one that I got very excited about, this hopefully might feature in future content one day, we don't know yet, but we hope, was azelaic acid, which is a huge, huge trending ingredient in the industry because of the skin benefits. And we found one at the show that is certified natural. So that is always very exciting for me when I see that the industry is looking to provide more natural and certified ingredients.
That is exciting to hear, because I know that's something that our students are always asking for as well, which is, of course, why we're doing the market research. We're out there talking to the ingredient suppliers. We're trying to find out what's happening in the industry. So you touched on something there that I just want to unpick for a minute. You said, we saw some plants make a comeback. I want to find out, what other plants did you see make a resurgence? Because, for instance, the other day we were having a chat at Formula Botanica and we said, what could we feature? And I think it was you, Anna, who said rosemary's trending at the moment. And I've always found that hilarious when that happens, because, of course, rosemary's been trending for 5,000 years in cosmetics. And here we are again. So what plants did you see make a resurgence in cosmetics when you were at the show? Beatriz, did you spot anything?
I noticed some citrus-derived ingredients, like using citrus fibers, cellulose extract from citrus plants, of course, essential oils, hydrosols, and many other plant-based ingredients. Also, I saw many olive-derived ingredients. That's, I think, a constant trend in the industry. And I think that's what I caught up from there.
How about you, Anna? What did you spot?
I was very interested in seeing sort of some of the sort of plant oils that perhaps have gone through different trends in the industry, sort of coming back and really being a staple. I mean, things like jojoba oil were everywhere. Things like argan oil, for example, which really sort of had its moment a little while back, but it's still around and it's still relevant to the industry. I mean, ultimately, not everything is always going to be about innovation. And sometimes it's about creating beautiful products with things that we already know exist and work. So yeah, all of those plant-based oils were absolutely everywhere, even though perhaps we've sort of had times where, they've had a particular moment of being on trend. They're still around, they're still used, and they're still loved by our community of formulators, of course.
Of course. Well, they're incredible ingredients. Were there any particular plant oils that were really, really sort of trending at the show this year?
Oh, that's a good question. There weren't any particularly that stood out to me, but perhaps I had my sort of active ingredient hat on a little bit more. What I will say is there was a focus not necessarily on plant oils, but different plant extracts available locally in different parts of the world. So, for example, there was a stand that was all about New Zealand botanicals. It was very much about getting in touch with what is available to you locally. And of course, it's an international show, so there was all sorts of different options. And I think that is going to be something that we see more and more of people wanting to formulate with what is available to them. So, for example, the New Zealand stand had these amazing botanical ingredients. Some of them were oil-based actives and some of them were, other sort of extracts. But they were just really interesting plants that were available locally in New Zealand. So if you are somebody who is in a specific part of the world, there was something for you. And there were sort of different areas of the show that were split up in different areas around the world as well, which I thought was clever.
It's like a formulator's paradise, isn't it? You can walk around and just get lots of inspiration. So you mentioned the sustainability. Well, both of you have talked a little bit about upcycling. Beatriz, what did you see in terms of sustainability of ingredients?
I think that for the last few years, the green beauty industry kind of lacked some high performance ingredient, and people are looking for these ingredients in their products. And now the industry is trying to get plant-based versions of these ingredients. For example, using biotechnology or even upcycling other products to get them. So I think that biotechnology is really trending for getting these ingredients in a sustainable way. As I said, upcycling was everywhere. There was even one brand that got an award for its work on upcycled ingredients. And one ingredient caught my attention, which was an emulsifier based on seaweed. And it was a very interesting story because they decided to take this algae that was overgrowing. So it was kind of polluting the sea where it grows. So they took this algae and using biotechnology, they transformed it in an emulsifier. So it was very interesting to see how they got a product from this overgrowing seaweed.
Incredible. That sounds fascinating. And it is amazing what you can do when you put your mind to it. Anna, what did you spot in the sustainability corner? Because I'm guessing there was a sustainability corner again this year.
Yes, there was. And as Beatriz has already said, upcycled ingredients was a huge trend, but it went a little bit beyond that. So I noticed more of a focus generally on circularity. So the ingredients had more of a complex ingredient story to them. So, for example, the manufacturers weren't just highlighting the ingredient itself, they were highlighting what they do with the waste that comes from that ingredient and how they use that waste as part of the process, as part of, creating biofuel or other useful resources. So the concept of circularity has started to creep in much more into these ingredient stories. And I think that's really important. I think that's partly driven by the fact that consumers are demanding sort of more in terms of their sustainability. And, the manufacturers want to provide that for formulators and brands to be able to use in their story too. So I was quite impressed by that. It's the ingredients themselves weren't necessarily radically different, but they were looking at different ways to utilize different parts of the materials, things that would have been discarded. It was much more comprehensive in the approach, I felt, this year compared to other years.
That's fascinating. Well, I suppose people are asking the question, and it's fantastic to see them actually addressing that because I think the first In Cosmetics I attended was 2015, and they certainly weren't talking about the sustainability of waste then. So it's great to see how far we've come in a relatively short period of time. So I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Beatriz, which ingredients are you most excited for our education team to experiment with, having now seen them at the show?
Well, there was one ingredient that caught my attention besides the tamarind gum, which was a new cationic active, which was plant-based, naturally derived, and it was called green quartz BT. And they were very eager to show their ingredient, and they were really proud of being able to produce a cationic active derived from plants. And this ingredient was even nominated for one of the awards. And I think I really wanted to experiment with it. And I think that for us, for creating new hair formulas, it would be amazing to try it it was one of the ingredients that really caught my attention.
That's great. I can't wait to see what we do with that one if we manage to get a hold of a sample. How about you, Anna? Which ingredients are you most excited for our education team to experiment with?
Well, the education team's already been very busy since we got back from the show, working with some of the retinol alternatives and creating some content around that. So I'm very excited about that so that we can share that with students and members. So that's really exciting. But also we're always looking out for different functional ingredients, things like emulsifiers and surfactants that, we can use that are, as I said before, naturally derived or naturally certified. So it's always very exciting to see, and this was a big trend this year, to see that all the manufacturers have expanded their portfolios, that there was lots and lots more ingredients that were accessible to us and to our students than there have been before. So it makes things easier when we have more choice.
Certainly does. Do you think that these manufacturers in general are starting to cater more for the indie sector and the indie formulators?
Yeah, that was another big thing that I found this year, was in terms of one of the first questions I always ask when I go to any stand is, about minimum order quantities, so that I know the kind of manufacturer that I'm speaking to and who they would provide to, because obviously our audience is indie formulators and, indie businesses. And we always have that at the heart of when we're going around these places thinking about who our audience is. This year, I felt a significant drop in the minimum order quantities. People were much more receptive to the indie beauty audience. The conversations were really, really positive, and everybody was really receptive to what we do at Formula Botanica, and understanding of the fact that there's a whole audience of indie formulators out there who want to access their ingredients. So I felt like on the whole, we had a couple that we went to that their minimum order quantities just wouldn't work for our audience. But on the whole, people seemed a lot more flexible and a lot more embracing of the indie community, which I got really excited about personally.
That is really exciting, particularly as the indie beauty formulators of today may well be the beauty giants of tomorrow. So I'm glad to hear that the ingredient suppliers are finally starting to recognize that. So, Beatriz, where do you think the ingredient sector is headed in 2023 and beyond, based on everything you've seen at the show?
Well, certainly towards sustainability. I think this was a main topic there. And I think that consumers are not buying the greenwashing anymore. So the brands are pushing themselves to really produce sustainable ingredients. And that was very interesting to see the different strategies to produce these ingredients, biotechnology or other ways of developing these ingredients. And I think that the industry is now really getting attention to this topic because they know it is relevant and they know that from now on people really care about it. So I think it's becoming more and more important to focus on sustainability, on getting a good ingredient story besides just the performance of the ingredient and efficacy. So I think that they are really pushing themselves to get a better story, to really produce the ingredients in a sustainable way, to get plant-derived versions of traditional ingredients that were produced synthetically before. So I think this is a big trend now.
Exciting times ahead by the sounds of things. How about you, Anna? What do you think is the future for the ingredient sector based on what you saw at the show?
Yeah, so two of the themes that Beatriz has already spoken about, sustainability and also sort of, biotechnology, they are sort of really relevant. But the one thing that stood out to me is that natural and organic is bigger and better than ever. So the embracing of botanicals was huge at the show. And there was so many different stands that had their logos proudly displayed, whether that's Cosmos or EcoCert or, all of these certifications were absolutely everywhere. And it was a big part of the manufacturer's sort of ingredient story to say, look, we've got these certified ingredients for you to work with. So botanicals, naturals were a big, big theme. I mean, none of that has slowed down. In fact, the industry seems to be getting more and more into the natural and organic certification side of things. So yeah, there was logos absolutely everywhere. And it was sort of really interesting to see how that was at the forefront of what the manufacturers were working with.
Exciting times ahead by the sounds of things. And as always, we are ahead of the curve. So if our listeners want to take part in the materials that we put out that may well contain some of this information that you've researched at In Cosmetics Global 2023, what would you recommend they do?
Well, come and visit the Formula Botanica website. We have so much information available for you. We have an amazing blog. We have free training that we provide to people, thousands of people each year. So yeah, there is lots that we can help you with in terms of teaching the world to formulate.
Yep, absolutely. And both of you, I know, are always very active with our membership site, The Lab at Formula Botanica, where we put out trending topics every single month. Will any of the information you've seen at the show come back in the lab in the future, do you think, Beatriz?
Surely is. We have many interesting things planned for this year.
Excellent. Well, we'll put all the links to those websites in the show notes, and do come and check us out. And if you haven't joined the lab yet, obviously you should. Thank you both so much for joining me today. It's been really interesting learning about what happened at In Cosmetics. I'm sorry I missed it this year, but it sounded like you both had a fantastic time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Which trending ingredients are you most interested in for the formulations that you either buy or make for yourself? Tell me what you think. Leave us a comment on our social channels, as both the Formula Botanica team and I love hearing from you. And if you want to hear more about some of the topics we covered, please do delve back into the podcast archives. Go and listen to episode 121, in which I interviewed Dr. Barb Paldus on lab-grown biotech ingredients for cosmetics and how they're growing in popularity in the beauty industry, as we talked about today. Or episode 79, in which I interviewed Timo von Bargen of Cavallo, the online ingredient database, which has tens of thousands of entries of different cosmetic ingredients. We talked about the way that indie beauty brands can source innovative natural ingredients. Or episode 66, in which Anna and I unpick what circularity in beauty actually means, and also tackle the topic of circularity when it comes to ingredients. There's a wealth of information in our old episodes, and I do encourage you to go back and listen to them. Thank you for joining Anna, Beatriz, and I for this latest episode of Green Beauty Conversations. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave us a 5-star review so that other people can enjoy these conversations too. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast app is, and stay tuned for the next episode. Follow Formula Botanica at Formula Botanica on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And come and give me a follow at Lorraine Dallmeier on Instagram. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com and sign up for our free online formulation course today.